It's
Oh,
been a
mate, how
while.
good is that?
It's been a while taking this, getting this to happen, hasn't it, with the time difference and stuff?
Yeah, no, it's good, but no, great time of the year to be able to do it.
Yeah, no,
But
absolutely.
just good to get it done. Like I don't know if anything like this has ever been done before.
I don't think so. I don't think so, but it probably should have before now, to be honest, because there's so much that we could be talking about, I guess, sharing experiences and learning from each other.
Well, exactly. But like, and that's one thing I've always thought. Like, there's so many sports out there, people at the top of the game, in football and NFL and rugby and league. But I don't know what it's like where you are up in the north, but there's not a lot of collaboration at all. Like I talk to a lot of other sports people or the sports they do, but we don't really talk to other referees because at the end of the day, we're all going through the same thing, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And we can become quite tunnel visioned, I guess, with what sport we're in and not learn from other sports because, as we'll discuss probably on this, I think you're a lot further ahead with technology than we are. And we can, I guess, look at what you're doing and try and catch up a little bit to try and get us to the level that you're at.
Well, I mean, that's interesting because, like, I would look at football and, like, I watch a little bit of football or soccer, but I would assume that, potentially you guys are ahead of us. So I find that quite funny where, we've sort of both got this standoff. But no, it's going to be interesting, and hopefully, we do this a bit more because I think, from the questions that we had from people throwing questions in, and even from some of the questions coming through, I'm sure tonight, mate, like we could just go on for hours, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about that. I guess to kick off, do you want to just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, your refereeing career, and what you do outside of that as well? And then I guess I'll do the same just for the two different audiences.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so yeah, really awesome to be part of this tonight. And obviously, hopefully, there's going to be a few rugby fans on here and a few football soccer fans as well. But yeah, my name Ben O'Keefe. I'm a rugby union referee from New Zealand. I've been refereeing professional rugby since about 2015. I think it's when I went full time with New Zealand Rugby. Before that, I refereed club rugby, and you sort of go up the grades within New Zealand. I grew up in Tasman, so fins up for top of the south where I'm from in Blenheim. Hopefully, there's a few people on here about from there as well. But had a great schooling there, and went to university down the cold south in Dunedin. So for me, I started refereeing. I never was a great player. Potentially, like a lot of referees that transition into rugby union refereeing. But just wanted to do it on the weekend when I stopped playing when I was at university, and it was a real passion really. So I studied medicine down at university, and then obviously started working as a doctor, and as time went on, got appointed to some more professional games in New Zealand. So NPC, Super Rugby, got pretty busy. So then, luckily, New Zealand Rugby offered me a contract, and you never know how long contracts are going to last. But fortunately, I've been able to do this since 2015, and currently referee so in Super Rugby down here, and then international Test matches as well. Fortunate enough to referee at the last two World Cups, one in Japan and one in France, and then hopefully you get the ticket to referee at the next one, which is going to be in Australia. So, yeah, really excited. I'm 35. Hopefully, I've got quite a few more years in me left. But yeah, really keen to sort of keep going and love what I do. So, yeah, it's a bit about me and Jamie, like your side as well, mate. Tell us a bit about you, how you got into it.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'm not sure it's a like for like in terms of the same level in the sports, but anyway, yeah, I started in 2008, so 2009, sorry. So I've been refereeing for 15 years now, 5 years now on the international list. I started out basically. I feel like so many people have heard this already, but I played for a couple of years. Didn't really do anything. Didn't see that I was going to do anything, so. It was a suggestion that I maybe do something different. So there's a few options really. I guess I could have went into coaching, could have done something else just in terms of volunteering in the sport. But I decided to start refereeing. No plans really to actually continue doing it. I done a couple of matches, kind of enjoyed it and kept going. And yeah, sort of just being sucked into the system and can't leave now. But no, in all seriousness, it's good. I really enjoy it. the years, I don't know about you, but the years just fly by. I'm sure it's the same for a lot of players and coaches that are involved in the sport. Every season just goes so fast. So yeah, 5 years on the international list. It's going okay. It's going okay. We'd obviously like to keep going with that. Try and get better games all the time, and who knows? You know, you can put a lot of work in, and hopefully you'll see something from that at the end.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, mate. Yeah, there's heaps of similarities there, and it's pretty exciting actually because like I'm so interested around like that pathway, and like so you said you're a. I've just got a few questions just around like what you're saying. Like, so you said you're a player. What happened? Like, what position were you?
I was goalkeeper. I'm not
Oh, really?
the
Wow.
team. The team wasn't very good in general, but I certainly wasn't anything special in that team. So it was an easy decision, and it's interesting because you can always look at it like if that hadn't have happened, and say the team was okay, then maybe I wouldn't have become a referee. So it's interesting looking at it like that.
The thing is though, like I reckon goalkeepers are, undercover, like almost sometimes the best players in the team.
Yeah,
Funny enough, my brother was a goalkeeper, so he played for New Zealand and actually went to London to the Olympics quite a few years ago as a keeper. And I remember some of the training that he used to do and what he had to do as a keeper, and it was pretty impressive. So I'm sure you haven't lost any of
do you
that.
think there's something in it that someone said this before because a goalkeeper has like a view of the match similar to what a referee has? Is there something in that I find a lot of referees are ex goalkeepers, and it's probably because of that they're kind of isolated. They're out of the way. They're not in the middle of it. So I think there must be some sort of stats to back that up.
That's it. I mean, that's a good point. Like the way that I think about it is, when I saw goalkeepers like that, you are controlling a lot at the back. Like you obviously like giving directions to your team and your back line, and it's kind of the same as if I think of like the most successful union players that have transitioned to refereeing. They've all been like halfbacks and first five. So Glenn Jackson, Carl Dixon from the UK. So I guess they've sort of been in that position where they're not in the mix, but they're controlling it too. So yeah, mate, there could be something in that. I'd be excited to find out.
Yeah, I definitely think there is. Um, I wanted to ask you about social media. It's obviously a topic we could discuss for a long time, but what do you see as the problems, the challenges of it at the minute, and also what are the opportunities as well from our side, I guess, from a refereeing perspective?
Look, I mean, I've talked about social media a lot because it's something that I think our generation, Jamie, like everyone realizes that, we use social media not just because, we travel a lot. It keeps us in contact with our family, our friends. It's a great way to share sort of, what we're doing. But, on top of that, like look at this opportunity that we're doing. This is on social media. We're live. We've got, 50 people watching this right now, which is pretty cool. So the opportunities there are pretty amazing, just to be able to share. But obviously with that, comes all the negativity around, I guess, that access that people have before a game, during a game, and after a game. And look, you'll find out, and I'm sure that you've had some stories as well where it's really hard to get away from it because you're in this sort of halfway house of, wanting to use social media for all the benefits, but then, how do you just create that thick skin of, doubt that's created in your mind when you get, these people that message you after the game and, I'm sure you've had some horrific stuff. I've had some horrific stuff. I don't know. Is it immune to football umpires, or is it rife no matter what sport you're doing?
I think it's the same throughout. You're obviously at a much higher level, respectively, so you'll get it probably a lot worse than me. You get the odd bit. I think over time you get used to it, and it's sad that that's the reality of it for players, for us, for other people involved in the sport. There's no like training to try and like get over comments that are made about you or your family or things like that. You kind of just over time accept that it's going to happen and kind of try and ignore it as much as possible. But mainly, you discussed there the fine balance between using it positively. I know you've been doing a lot with coaching rugby referees and trying to share your experience as well. So, I mean, that's amazing. But yeah, if you're putting yourself out there, you're gonna get some hate. And yeah, I mean, I've had a few things, but you just I think more about those people that are typing those things on Twitter or wherever it is, and I'm not sure why they do it. I think sometimes people like that have two completely different personalities. They're maybe hiding behind a fake account or something like that, and they wouldn't say half the things that they say on those accounts in real life in their real persona as such. So it's crazy, really. It's crazy, and it's sad because we're trying to encourage new referees to come into the game, and they'll see stuff like this, and it's not something that's going to encourage them to pick up a whistle, is it?
Like, and that's the big thing, like we love our game, we love our sport. You said, yourself, you started at a young age, and, if you get someone that's starting young, it means they have so much experience, it can actually be a fantastic part of the game in the future. And so we try and really encourage it. And, I think like one thing, I've always done is that, it's really important to be open about it. And I try and do crusade a little bit of a message around, social media and, what it can do, but also negativity. I think one of the big things for me, like what helped me is we're all humans, right? Like you read something about yourself online or in a headline, or you see a picture of yourself with your name, you do have that doubt. So I just, for people that are refereeing and they sort of, they always ask me, oh, what would you do? Or how do you help, to make it any easier or better? I just say, look, have a really good support network around you. And I'm sure you've got the same, Jamie. Friends, family who you really trust their opinions. But I'm real in depth in my reviews. So I actually will, and I'm sure you do as well, go through the game, decision by decision, the non-decision, my position, my communication. So after the game, I actually know how good I've gone. And, you're never perfect. Like, I think it's impossible to have a perfect game. I don't know what it's like in football, but like you're always balancing the laws, being subjective, trying to get flow to the game, trying to set boundaries for the players. It's really it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and there's no bigger critic of me than myself. And as you say, we look at our own performances. We don't need anyone to tell us that we've made a mistake. If we've had enough experience to know, to self-evaluate and know when we've made a mistake. And okay, you can become immune to stuff that's on social media, but we'll look at our own games and the clips and everything else. And as long as you know where you went wrong and where you can get better, then I mean, you can just ignore everything else that everyone else is saying.
Mate, I think so as well. And so, like, is there any, because like I guess New Zealand Rugby, World Rugby, we're sort of working on, protocols and things that we should be doing with social media. Even like game day, we're not allowed, to have our phones with us. Is there anything in like FIFA and football up in the north where, like, do you have specific, rules around how you use social media, or how you use sort of technology like phones and stuff like that? Like I always heard that, for example, you guys had to, you'd find out your games really last minute, and then like the
Yeah.
bus route to the game is actually like, you guys will be in a hotel in the outskirts, and then you'll sort of come in at a certain time. Is that true? Is that a myth or?
It's not, it's not really at the hotel. It's not really on the way to the hotel or anything like that. It's quite last minute, yeah. It's quite last minute. Probably, you know, a few days beforehand, something like that, a week beforehand. It depends on the assignment really. But yeah, no real guidance on social media as such. I think they've kind of left it that, you know, where the kind of line is and what to post. I think they want us promoting refereeing. So, that's probably something we're both doing quite well. But not talking about decisions on certain matches or other people's matches is probably where the line is, and I think that's right to draw there. But for me personally, I try not to look at my phone too much on a match day. Before or after, or especially at half time, because there'll be a lot of decisions in the first half in a match, and the last thing you want is someone picking up the phone and looking at something and finding out you've made a massive error. Because it's naturally gonna, well, you hope not, but it might affect your second half. And you don't want anything like that, because there's been many times where I've came in at half time and I've thought, wow, I've got that penalty decision wrong. Convinced myself of it, and I look at it after the game and it's actually right.
Yeah.
So I don't look at anything at all like that. And then I think it's a lot healthier. You can do all your own self analysis after the match, and you don't need to look at anything on match day, I don't think.
I reckon like you really nailed it then. Like it's something that I think, I found out as well. Like I have this thing on my whistle, or something that I use. It's called just trust and enjoy. So it's sort of like engraved in my whistle. So that's kind of like my mental reset that I have in a game. I know that a lot of people they might have a mental reset, or they might have a physical reset where they feel they slap their thigh, or they try and feel themselves ground into the ground, or they look at the scoreboard. Like, there's all these sort of different things. But I had the whole trust and enjoy, and that the trust piece of it is as I worked out that. In a game, whenever I've had doubt around a decision, I've looked at the big screen because you're in the moment, because you don't have the ability to review it. When I did think I was wrong, the risk was is that that decision and that doubt means that you're not fully focused on the next decision, and
Yeah,
you might make an error in that decision, and then you start snowballing, and then that's the worst thing is you can start snowballing, and then all these decisions sort of can be wrong. When actually, and then after the game, like you said, you review that decision that you had a question about, and you're right. Like 99% of the time, you're right. Because of the way that you've trained, your instinct. So it took me a while to sort of work that out. But now that whenever I see it on the big screen, or there is a question mark around my decision, I just go trust and enjoy, move on to the next decision, because I know that 99% of the time when I review it, when I look at all the angles, when I'm relaxed, when I'm not in the game, then I find out that most of the time I'm right. So yeah, it took me a while to sort of get that, but yeah, exactly what you do as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I found myself in the past probably still thinking about a decision a couple of minutes after, and I'm maybe saying to the other boys over the comms, what did you think of that? Did you think there was something And you have to. The big thing is trust in your judgment, and I think back to how many decisions I've got right, and yes, obviously there's always some wrong, but I have to trust my judgment in that moment, and trust that I've seen the right thing. I've had the experience of seeing similar things before, and having that feel for what's happened. And you only get that with experience, don't you? You can't really train someone on how to have a feeling for when something's not right, or whenever there's a penalty situation, whether it is or not, and the expectation of the players as well. But just, I guess, a natural point to lead on to then is, you know, overcoming big mistakes and linked into that, the media coverage and things like that. How have you, I guess, over the years and as you've gained more experience, became better at getting over that? And what's your sort of process of the days, the hours, weeks, whatever after, mentally getting over that mistake or that bad experience? Just especially for some of the younger referees that are coming on, because that was probably the hardest part for me in the early days to um, go into the next game, go into the next day after having some controversy or something like that. You get much better at it over time, don't you?
Yeah, and I always just want to jump back on the horse. Like I always found that if you had a difficult game, as long as you could referee the next weekend, you could actually fix something and then get back out in the
Yeah,
middle. The hardest times were when, it was the last game of the season, or you might have had 2 weekends off and you had to be the assistant referee. I always found that tough. But for me, it was all about, I just realized, you got to be realistic. So obviously, as long as you're not making the same decision multiple times, you got to question yourself. Okay, why is that happening? Because if you make an error in the game, an error is always going to happen, and you just got to work out: is it an error of judgment? Is it an error of technical law knowledge? Is it a positional error, or is it something else? And I think once you can work that out, then you can fix it straight away. Because when you make something in the game that isn't the correct decision, all you've learned is that, okay, I need to fill my toolbox. I need to work something out. I need to fill that toolbox again, or fix it so that that gap in my ability as a referee, I don't have that gap anymore. And so if you have that type of mindset, week to week to week, you're just slowly going to continually increase over the season, right? So I love it because I always see it as an opportunity. So you do a game, and obviously you don't want to have too many errors in a game, and you don't want it to be high impact decisions where you're constantly getting wrong, but if you're slowly making tweaks week by week and you actually put more pressure on yourself, and like you said before, Jamie, you're your hardest critic, you can go into that detail of, okay, why did I make that decision? And so after the games, I think you can do this at club level. You can just write down one or two key things that you think, okay, next week I need to improve on this. And so I do a lot of learning cycles. So for me, a learning cycle is, okay, I see something. It might not even be an error. It might just be something I need to get better at for next week. So I've identified it. I then like go into the theory behind it. Okay, so for example, I had one this season which was when a player does a chip kick, through. I'm getting into a bit of rugby term here, but you said to be with me.
Yeah.
But if they chip kick through the opposition, when they turn, sometimes they can either turn and chase for the ball, or they'll turn and try and block the player coming through. And so I started missing that as a referee, because I was out of position. So I realized that, okay, I need to work on this. So I did a learning cycle around it, identified it, worked on the theory, worked out, okay, cool. I can read when a fullback comes in and they're about to chip the ball. You can tell by their body language, so identify that. Look at some clips, practice it, practice it, practice it, and then get out on the field and do it. And then the next weekend, the same thing happened, and I got the decision right. So I constantly do that, and you just keep reinforcing yourself. And I think I'm sure that would be the same as what you do in football, in terms of those decisions that you want to keep getting better at.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. As you know, football, there'll always be something that'll throw up that's new to you. But most of the time, you've seen things happen before. There might be a slight variation on it, but if, as you said, if you can't work out why you've made a mistake for what reason, then you'll never move forward, I guess.
But yeah, and you're right. Like we do so much work on different types of pictures. Like I'm sure you do the same, because we work on a high tackle process. So, where the contact is, what the danger level is there any mitigation? The thing is, every single tackle is slightly different.
Yeah.
So you're actually going out with, it's a fresh picture every time. But what you do is, if you can trust the work that you've done off field, trust those processes, you're able to react, and like your instincts train a little bit more. So it's almost, when you go out into a field, I always had it like studying for an exam. Like when I go out into a rugby field, I've actually done so much work during the week, that, when you're on the field, it's like, cool, you're actually in control. Like you're not going to be surprised by too much. So I thought that's always helped. But I did have one thing though for you, Jamie, I actually practiced doing this. I can't actually get a picture up on this anymore. So I did have no, I can't. But mate, I had one question, and it was around, like, honestly, I think union referees are a lot different, right? But when I watch football umpires or football referees, they're either wearing extra small shirts, or they hem their shirts up, because honestly, the arms on you guys are crazy. And I found a picture of you, and there's this other referee that I've just found before. So is it like a specific thing that FIFA referees have to sort of lift a certain do some bicep curls before games, or what?
I'm just waiting to be found out as a referee so I can become a PT and have some credibility.
Yeah. So
No,
it's true
no.
then.
No, that's funny. That's funny. And there's a couple of funny questions coming up whenever we get to them as well. But very good.
Oh, we'll have a chat offline about your regime. I think I
Well,
need to look at it.
one thing, you talked about just the skills there of um, working out why you've made mistakes and things like that. One thing I wanted to talk about was sort of the crossover of skills, the transferable skills between refereeing, whether it be rugby, football, whatever sport. What do you think are the skills that we take from that and we can apply to our professional life?
Yeah, look, I think there's so many crossover skills, from being a referee and umpire in sport. So many. And it's one of those things that people in business, they go to university to get degrees, or they get their apprenticeship, their trades to be good at something as well. Like through osmosis, we learn, and every weekend we go through these environments where we're constantly being put under pressure and having to make decisions. We're constantly having to manage, two different teams, so individuals. We're having to communicate different decisions to people as well. So I think even just those three things there, if you look at any business, if you're a CEO of a business, an employee of a business, you need to be a good communicator. You need to be able to make quick decisions. You need to be able to manage people.
Yeah,
So I've always thought that, any referee, at any level, the fact that every weekend you're putting yourself out there for 80 minutes, going under pressure and putting yourself in front of those learning experiences, you'd be able to walk into a job anywhere in the world, and be able to offer something from those experiences. And I think, we do see that a lot now, with referees when they retire. They move into things like, businesses or leading companies, or into management roles, because it's almost like they're going down to something that's easier, I think. So, even for that, like, I encourage people just to obviously take up the whistle because of those skills that you get. So you get to have fun while you're doing it, and then, there's a lot of opportunities afterwards, I believe as well.
How old were you when you started refereeing?
I was 19, so I
19.
was at my second year of university. So, yeah, so a little bit older, and that's one of the big things now is, refereeing football in union. It's actually a bit of a professional
Yeah.
pathway. It can be, even from social sports all the way up to professional level. And it's probably only just been happening in the last probably 10 years, or probably as we were getting into it. So people are making a decision, am I actually going to keep playing or start refereeing at a younger age? So it's all about trying to find that balance of, learning a skill, and balancing, playing in that sport as well. So it's pretty exciting for everyone out there, I think.
Yeah, because the reason I asked was because I started at 14, which is arguably maybe even too young. But I always feel like a lot of the social skills and management skills in life that I have today was gained from doing that, from refereeing from such a young age. I probably at 16 felt like I was 25, because I was always around older people. I was always having to manage older people and not sort of think about what age people were because I was refereeing people older than me at that age. So I kind of say that to whenever younger people ask me, should I take up refereeing and what the pros are. Obviously, there's keeping fit, there's earning some money at that age, but a big thing is just it's gaining those life experiences so early on, and as you said, being able to apply it to other things in life, whether it be a job you're doing, a role you're given at a company. But I just think it's so unique in a way, and it doesn't matter which sport. You're developing skills that employers are really after today, especially today.
I think like, and I've seen younger referees starting at the age that you started, refereeing soccer, and I've like an admiration of them because, when I started refereeing, I was 19. So, I started refereeing under 16s, and then, started refereeing under 18s, and then Colt. So everyone was a little bit younger than me. And then, so you sort of had that age, I guess, respect on the field. And then slowly, as you got more experience, they became a little bit older. Now I'm on the field and I'm like 35. I think,
I'm feeling as
everyone's
well.
like,
I'm feeling
every,
it.
I know, how old are you? 30?
Yeah, 30,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
like all the professional players now, they're old if they're, older than 25. But I think, yeah, so that period that you're referring from 14 to, in some referees, to 20, where you're actually the youngest on the field, there's some amazing skills there that, I wouldn't have picked up on, which I think are really important. Even just like, portraying yourself, confidence, even just the people skills to obviously, look up to someone and actually try and give them a decision when they're sort of bearing down on you, trying to, use their age and their size against you. So, yeah, it's credible.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. One thing I wanted to touch on was sacrifices that you've had to make as a referee, and I guess this is applicable to anyone in sport really that's had to make them. How has it been for you? You obviously do a lot of traveling, probably, well, not probably, definitely a lot more traveling than me, given where you're located in the world. How have you found that being away from family, and probably missing key events, birthdays, whatever it may be? How have you found that? How do you manage that?
Yeah, it is probably one of the hardest, and as you've alluded to as well, like, we don't have a 9 to 5 job Monday to Friday. So the positives are there that, we are home, during the week. I've got a bit of a break now before the season starts again, so, some huge positives there. But you're right, like the sacrifices are that, you're away a lot doing the job that you love, and when you have family at home and you have friends at home, I know a lot of referees have kids at home. They have amazing wives, husbands, partners who, pick up a lot of the slack, on the outside of that. So, it is really difficult, I think. I always try and make sure that, you look at the upside. So, I know that, for example, my fiance, she's been able to come with me on trips as much as we've been able to. So actually making the most of those times, and it's really special seeing her, in the crowd, and, being on these trips that we can go on as well. And obviously she knows like what I need to do during the week to prepare, and on game day as well. So I think that's really, really special. But I remember coming, growing up, and you'd have these great times away, but you would be missing significant events at home. Friends, birthdays, friends' weddings, and I remember early on, like, had a really tough decision. I'd been appointed to my first ever sort of international game, and you know what it's like when you start. It's like, okay, you feel like you're given this one opportunity, you got to take the opportunity. It's going to lead to hopefully another opportunity, because you can't say no to it. Because if you say no to it, you're gonna be lost in the system. Someone else will take your
Yeah.
place. And I still feel really bad about it now. But I had like one of my really good mates at med school. He was getting married, and it was in sort of the November test window. It was a bit of a surprise to me to get appointed to this game, but I got appointed. It was Scotland versus Argentina. Massive, massive game, and I was just a baby referee, but I just couldn't say no to it, because I felt like, well, if I wanted a career as a referee, which I did, I needed to do it. So, I had to miss out that, and it's just one example of sort of many, many things. And I know that there are a lot of rugby referees that, they've missed a lot of, I guess, birthdays and significant events around, kids growing up and their children growing up, and I think that's quite difficult sometimes, but. Look, there's the positive and negatives of both sides. I think a lot of people have these issues no matter what job they have. So, and I know that it is difficult because we're in New Zealand, so it does mean, well, especially when we had Super Rugby with South Africa, we would travel, and our travel time, because we have to go long haul, you'd stay 2 to 3 weeks in every place. So Argentina, Japan, South Africa, the Northern Hemisphere 4 times a year as well. So some big long trips and big times away versus potentially in Europe, where, and the beauty of Europe is that you can just sort of, fly overnight somewhere amazing, which would be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
like, is that the same for you guys? Like, you're obviously going to some amazing places as well, and it must be quite difficult if you're not traveling with anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, we probably we don't appreciate sometimes how small Europe actually is. We think it's way bigger than it is. When in reality, whenever I'm comparing myself to you and what you have to travel, it's nothing really. Most most journeys are going to be like a 1, 2, 3 hour flight, something like that. So it's actually not too bad. But what you have to do is a completely different level, and it's the overall distance, the journey, the time away, everything. But I think we've got it fairly easy. Our trips are never going to be too long, given the fact that everywhere's pretty close together, and we're never going outside of Europe typically. So yeah, it's not too bad. Did you ever work out, like, in previous years, how many days you spent away from home or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, I had there's an app that I use called TripIt. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's one of
No.
those ones where you can basically, when all your emails come through with your hotels and your flight booking, you just send it to the TripIt app, and it can just collate everything. It just is like a good one-stop place for
Right.
all your
Okay.
travel stuff. Because otherwise, I'm constantly going through emails and having to work out where I'm staying for the night. But when it was bad, like, oh, sorry, when it was busy, because it was a great time. But I was away for 200 plus nights of the year. So almost it was a long time. And so do you guys, because I know there'll be a lot of rugby people on here, like, is it the same as referees in rugby union? We sort of travel maybe with our assistant referees and our TMOs for the duration of the trip. Is it the same thing where you're traveling, or is it do you just sort of meet up depending on where they're from on game day?
No, typically you travel with the rest of the team, assistant referees, fourth official, VARs as well. So yeah, you'll all travel together, and unless there's something exceptional, then you might meet someone there. But what they've been doing a lot is, because VAR has only been introduced not that long ago, they're actually mixing countries. I'm not sure if it's the same with you guys. So you might have a team from Northern Ireland, and then VARs from, say, France or Netherlands or something like that. It just depends. But they've been mixing teams quite a lot, which is actually nice because you're again getting out of your comfort zone of being around people you know and actually working with other guys. So yeah, that's typically how we work.
I remember the World Cup. I think it was that they had like the camera on the VAR section, or people in the bunker, and they were in full kit as well. They're like a full on-field kit.
Yeah,
Is that true? Like, I love
yeah,
that, and like,
yeah.
I think that was awesome. So hopefully we're gonna get we'll get like a bunker potentially in Super Rugby or even World Rugby, and I'm going to make sure that everyone's wearing full kit, ready to get on the pitch.
Yeah, it's an interesting look, that's for sure. I don't know if you've any
We,
other questions you want to go for me, or do you want to go on to what people
I
have asked?
think just the one thing, like, I mean, it's so interesting because I know there'll be a lot of union sort of referees or people on here, but like, can you just tell us around like a game day experience for being a FIFA referee? You know, like I know you refereed the Irish Cup final, but you know, even some of the like some place that you've gone to, and just what is it like game day? Because you know, we watch like football's massive, soccer is massive in the world, you know, so much bigger than rugby union. So. You know, I'm always in awe of kind of what you guys do, and the atmospheres you're in. So yeah, I mean, just a quick sort of rundown on like a game that you've done or, you know, an experience that you've had.
Yeah, it's probably it's probably not too different from what you guys will do. If I'm talking about a European match, typically we'll arrive in the day before kickoff. Usually no later than about 6 p.m. would be the absolute limit. You'll arrive in, get into the hotel. You'll meet other people, delegate, referee, observer, people like that. And then, yeah, you'll get dinner. You go to bed. It's fairly simple. Next day, you'll have a security meeting also on the match day -1, just to cover a few things. You'll talk about kit colors, anything security related, travel to the stadium, things like that. Match day, typically, depending on the kickoff, obviously, it'll be pretty chilled. Breakfast, lunch, if it's an evening kickoff. You'll speak to the team. You'll kind of have like a bit of a chat about the game, what we're expecting, just kind of team tactics, all of that stuff. And then we'll leave to arrive at the stadium typically 90 minutes before the game. So same time as the teams really. We'll get into the stadium, we'll check the pitch, we'll check the colours, make sure everything's fine, check the equipment of the players initially, and then we do that a couple more times. And then I guess we'll just set up in the changing room, get ready for the match, make sure our comm system's all linked up, everything's working okay. And then, yeah, we'll warm up half an hour before the game, back in 15 minutes before kickoff, get everything together. And then, yeah, we'll get the teams out, we'll get started, do the match, come in after the game. We'll have a short debrief typically from the observer, go back to the hotel, then we'll have a longer debrief there as well. And then that's it really. We'll travel home the next day. Typically it's an early morning flight. And yeah, that's how it goes. I'm sure it's similar
Surely,
for you.
surely one or two beers after the game as well, or is that a no-no?
No alcohol at all.
Good.
No, we'll have a
So,
couple. Yeah, depends how the game goes, of course.
fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, awesome, mate. Look, I mean, I guess there's heaps of questions that we could probably go through. I think we've answered a few anyway as well. But do you want to just start? Should we just start answering some of the ones that came from the post earlier in the week and some from tonight? What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll start out with this one. I'm not sure who's asked these, but someone asked, "Do you think football could learn from rugby in?" Well, this is for me, I guess. Do you think football could learn from rugby in handling of TMO VAR issues? I think, as I said to you at the start of this call, I think that we're still very, very early in this process of introducing technology to such an old sport. I can't believe it's probably taken this long, but um, we, I guess, across the board, probably need to become more efficient in just using technology. We it's such a new thing to us, I guess. And the more experienced guys will be a lot more efficient at using it. But I think as time goes on, we're going to reduce the time for checks and things like that. So yeah, I guess that's where we could learn just using your experience and working off your experience to try and uh, know what to look for better, and yeah, reduce that time, but still keep the high accuracy of the decision making.
I think it's like exactly what we're trying to do as well. And this is where, you know, there's a TMO slash VAR slash equivalent in every sport. So we should be talking a bit more between the sports to actually
Yeah,
work out what are the iron out the creases. And I agree, like I think the TMO is really, really important in rugby union. It's important that, you know, things happen so quickly. We've got the camera angles to make the decision, you know, fast enough. You know, let's use it. But the risk is that when we start using it too much, that's when it starts slowing down the game. That's when it starts becoming, it's not entertaining anymore. So you're right, there's that fine balance. And I know there's some exciting things coming up around, using chips in the ball so we can, work out if it's a forward pass or not, and if the ball's been grounded. So yeah, no, really, really, really exciting times, I think. So I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll keep talking about. Mate, I had a question here, and it's kind of just a quick one for both of us, really. So, it was about how much you guys run in football as a referee. Obviously, you guys have GPSs. As a union referee, we kind of run about 7.5 kilometers in an 80-minute game. And if we've run over that, it's either be a fast game or potentially our running lines are a bit inefficient. And if we run under that, again, it could have just been like a kick battle game, or potentially we're out of position. So. What kind of numbers do you guys run? Are you guys above that?
I would say 8 to 10 kilometers per match.
Wow.
Depends on, as you said, same idea. Just depends on the type of match it is.
Yeah.
I think. Tell me what you think, but as time goes on and you get more experience, you run less. Because you know where to be, you know the best positions
100%.
to be in. Yeah, because when I started out, I was running like a madman, just all over the place, trying to work out where was the best place to be. But as time goes on, certain phases of play and where you need to be in the best position, the best angle to be in. And as that happens, then your distance covered comes down significantly.
Well, that's what I was always amazed at. Some of the best referees in the world, and I won't name them because, they probably weren't the fittest referees in the world. We've got some really, really fit referees now, but they were always in the right position to make the call.
Yeah,
That's something I learned to. And I remember, for referees, for union referees, obviously if we chase the ball, we chase the ball. That's probably inefficient running. Like what we try and do is it's called staircase running, where even if the ball's heading out to the left, we try and run straight forward first, get into space, and then across to where the tackle is.
yeah.
That sort of staircase running up the pitch means that you're gonna have time and space to see everything. So yeah, interesting. So obviously, but you guys have beat us there. You're about 2 clicks above us. So you guys are for the one.
I'm not sure about that, but yeah, that's typical for what it is. I would say my distance is probably closer to the 7.5, probably similar to you guys right now. But in the past, it might have been 10, and I thought I was doing the right thing, running as much as possible, trying to be everywhere. But it's really not, and it takes the time and other people telling you that it's not the best thing to be doing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. Hey, I had a really interesting one, and one that I've always looked at as well is, obviously I reckon, union compared to soccer. Sorry, but do you say soccer or football? I
I,
suppose you should say that.
I say football, but either's
Okay.
fine.
Football. All right, I'm going to clear that one up. So, like you see, there's a lot of sort of, what you guys have to deal with is, players running in and sort of that physicality and that intimidation and that, not I guess abuse versus in union, sort of we don't have that where I think players are a little bit more respectful or, like we give the yellow card or we march them 10 meters. But is there anything that's happening in football to go down that track, or why do you think it's allowed more than it is in rugby?
Well, this is one we could talk about probably for a long time. And I would question maybe after whether it's like a cultural uh, issue. Is there a different culture and people involved in either sport? Maybe I'm not sure, to be honest. But recently we've introduced like a new captain's approach, so it's probably taken from rugby, whereby uh, during the game and after major decisions, only the captain can speak to us, which wasn't the case in the past. So if during a match somebody approaches me in an aggressive, maybe aggressive is the wrong word, but the dissent towards me after a major decision, then they're going to get a yellow card. It's only the captain that can speak in a respectful manner. And if there's any sort of mobbing or crowding around us, then it's just a yellow card for
When, when,
everyone
when did
involved. So
when did that get brought in? Has that
just,
been has players been yellow carded?
just last season, just last season. So
Oh,
it's I guess it's the whole trying to really kick out the scent and the image, improve the image of the game. So it's a big thing that UEFA is pushing to try and make football look better, make football look cleaner. Not have this idea of 20 players running around the referee screaming. So it's no doubt taken from rugby, and how well it's been working for you for years. So yeah, I think it's worked quite well. We've still a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. We've a hell of a way to go yet to try and change that. But I don't know. It's night and day whenever I watch a football and rugby match. Hopefully, it's the gaps closing in terms of how respectful players are towards you guys. But do you think things are getting better for rugby or getting worse for rugby in terms of dissent from players? Because I think we're getting better, but we were working from a different place completely.
Look, yeah, I think it's funny. I've always said to mates when I've been watching a soccer game or a football game, like, oh no, like I'll just jump on there and I'll just, they can't be doing that. If I dealt with it how I deal with it in rugby, there'd actually be no one left on the pitch. There'd probably just be the
Yeah,
goalkeepers having pop shots at each
yeah.
other. But then you wouldn't have the game. So you're right. It's just going to take time. I think. I reckon in Union, we're still really really fortunate that the players, the biggest players in the world, 120 kgs, the 6'6" plus, and they'll come in, they'll shake your hand after the game, or they'll be polite and during the game, even when you've made a clear error, they've seen it on the big screen, they might even just smile and they get on to the next job. I think we're really lucky, and potentially you're right. It's the same thing. It's a cultural thing that we've had for many many years. I know that when players show disrespect to each other or even towards the referee, they're punished pretty hardly, either on the field or even off the field as well. But not even by like the officials, it's by their teams as well and by coaches and by their clubs. So we're very fortunate with that because I think people see that on the field and on the TV, and then that goes down to grassroots as well. So even though there's a lot of sort of potentially loudness and noise and abuse coming from the sidelines, I feel like on the field, players are pretty good in Union, which we're really really fortunate about.
I was speaking to someone recently. I question whether there's actually is there is there a lack of respect for authority in general these days towards referees. Again, you won't see it probably as much as I do, but towards referees, towards police, towards teachers, I feel like we've probably we're probably not where we need to be in terms of that. I don't know if it's a new generation or something like that, but there's less of respect towards people in positions of authority nowadays. What do you think?
Yeah, and like this is, I mean, we go real deep with this, this is outside of sport as well. But I think you might be right, like a generational thing where, a lot of it's around, people want things quickly, they want it now. Sort of attitudes and behaviors sort of growing up, and, maybe access to information as well, on your smartphone, probably leads to some of that too. So, yeah, it's probably a time where that's why we use sport, we use sport to be able to get away from that kind of thing. And it brings it happiness and it brings people together. So I think that's probably why, people
Yeah.
love it so much. I think you're right. Um, with like in rugby, we try and have a feel for the game to increase flow, but we also want to make sure that we're technically accurate as well. But like, materiality is a big thing in rugby. Obviously, we try and make people enjoy the game. We obviously want them to be within the laws. Is context and materiality something that is in football? Is it black and white in your decisions that you make?
What are you really asking? Sorry.
So like I guess so, do you have the ability as a football referee or a soccer referee to say that, look, okay, I understand there's been a slide tackle, he's come in, it hasn't affected the ball, he's able to play through, so actually I can play on, but I'm going to bank that sort of action for next time because potentially if that player does it again, or if he does miss the ball next time, then I will penalise it, or is it pretty much no, as soon as you clip someone, because obviously you get a lot of I guess exaggeration from players as well. So you're
Yeah.
always trying to have to deal with that too.
Yeah, I guess there's some element of that, but in general, you're probably isolating the decision for what it is. I'm not really, looking at it and remembering something that might not be too great, but you're isolating it for what it is. But again, we try and manage it matches as much as possible. It's very easy sometimes to just throw cards out for things and what's technically correct for a card, but we try and manage it where possible. We deal with our players. We know our players. You'll know the same. The people you're dealing with from your own research and your own experience of dealing with these people. Sometimes, you're not going in with expectations for what players will do, but you know your players. You know what might happen. And I guess it's just managing them through the game, knowing what's going to happen. Generally speaking, but Yeah, there's some element of that. I think it's probably more common in your sport, to be honest, and we kind of deal with just what's happened at the time and punish it accordingly.
Yeah.
So there's loads of questions here from before and
Yeah,
on the side.
I had one that I was just looking at now. I can't actually put on the big screen, but I think you might be able to. It was the first one around. Can you see that? Do you get nervous before pulling out a red card? Do you have access to that? Does that go on the big screen if you put
Yeah,
it up?
yeah, I can see it. Yeah, not really. No, it's again back to what we discussed. It's trust in your judgment. I'm never going to make that decision without being fairly sure, not fairly sure, but 100% in my own mind that it's worthy of a red card because it's a match changing decision at the end of the day.
Mm.
So you want to make sure that if you're pulling that out, it's well worthy for what it is. So no, not really. Probably early on in my career, I might have been a bit, but certainly now it's part of what you have to do, and I'll make sure I have my own reasoning in my head and the justification for it. And again, it's through experience for why I'm giving it. What about you?
Yeah, on the same. Like I think it's really important because it's such a game-defining decision.
Yeah.
I know we've got a bunker now, but we can still give the full game red card. There's a lot of debate around red cards in games because technically our decision making or the decisions that we punish are getting tighter and tighter for players. Like you're 2 centimeters away from a normal tackle becoming a red card. So it is a big talking point, especially the difference between a 20-minute red card and a full game red card now. So I'm like you, like it's important to take my time, have myself the space so I can make the clear decision and go through a process. But one thing I do, and I'll show you, I actually have my card wallet here. So this is what you get as a union referee. But what I've got is actually a four sort of holder card thing. So I know that if I'm going to give a yellow card in the game, yeah, I give a yellow card. But if a red card, because it's so important, I've actually got to open up my book to actually pick it out. So mentally for me, I've actually got to go through the option of one, two, three yellow cards before the red card. So it's almost like I'm questioning myself. I'm like, okay, cool. Okay, red card's my decision, but then it's my last sort of safety net. Should it be a yellow card? So that's one thing. It's like a little, I guess, uh, tripwire, a little safety thing that I have just to make sure that, look, if I'm going to pull the red card, it is important. Make
And
sure it's the right decision. So
I
it's
love
the
that.
same.
I love that. Yeah, because it's just that small action, that extra process of doing that makes you think, yeah, as you said, is this really worth giving this red card? But that's an interesting one because I sell referee kit and equipment, so that's maybe something that I could
Oh
introduce
yeah, I
for
saw that. Yeah.
football refs. That's a really really interesting one, and there's a good story behind it. You could sell it like that. So yeah, maybe something I'll look into. I'll maybe get some of your consultancy services.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
It's quite cool. So a lot of the questions were actually kind of answered throughout this chat, but there is one around which is quite relevant in rugby, but in football, like you talked about the VAR changing. Like, how often are the rules changing, and how do you have to keep up with them? Is it quite difficult?
Not really, to be honest. I'm constantly reading the laws of the game anyway. I'm sure you're the same. I would refresh every week, to be honest, because there's a lot of things in there that don't typically happen during matches, but could, and I want to make sure that I'm on top of it and know what I'm going to do if those things do happen. So yeah, it's not too bad. Every season there'll be a few small changes. A few years ago there was a lot of changes. To the laws of the game. So it was a little bit different, but after that, they're just trying to make changes really to improve the game. One they're actually talking about now is if the goalkeeper holds onto the ball for longer than 6 seconds, they're going to award a corner instead. So what would have happened would have been just indirect free kick for the opposing team if the goalkeeper held the ball for longer than 6 seconds. But it hasn't really been implemented properly, and it's one of those laws that it's never given. But this might change it slightly. It's to overall reduce the time wasting element of football. So that's one change that they're looking at.
But
There's trials, and I think they might bring
has that
in.
always been a rule? Has that always been a rule that the
Yeah,
keeper can't hold the ball for more than 6 seconds?
never given, but it always happens.
Wow,
Yeah,
unbelievable. I
yeah,
never knew that.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to be
So
diligently counting 6 seconds every time I watch the next game.
honestly, it's typically 10, 12 seconds. You know, it's normal, but because there's no expectation for it to be given, you just couldn't give it because nobody would be expecting it. So I think this might change it slightly, and it'll encourage the goalkeeper to release the ball a lot quicker because giving away a corner kick at the 89th minute or something like that, if you're winning the game 2-1, is it's not going to be too popular with your
We,
teammates, is it?
we have the same in rugby. It's scrum feeds. So technically, when you feed the ball into the scrum, it has to go straight and down the middle. But we're getting a bit loose around that. We sort of allow it, like, and then the
Yeah,
problem is that if you haven't ruled on it, and then there's a pretty shocking one this 79th minute, it's pretty tough.
yeah.
Uh, Mate, there was one that I really liked. It was about because I can remember one that I'll share afterwards. But like in your career, and I know, geez, you're going to have such an amazing career. It's going to, you're going to be able to do some amazing things. It's going to be awesome for everyone on here to watch how you go. But has there already been a point in your career that has been a bit of a turning point for you, either from a point of like confidence or a point of selection? Yeah, is there sort of one game that you're able to remember?
Not really one particular match. It's been. Do you know what the biggest thing for me was? It was, and I don't know the particular time that it was, but it was being able to accept within myself that I'm gonna make big mistakes every now and again in matches, and it's actually having the ability to overcome them. And I know we discussed it previously, and not beat myself up and not sort of get down in the dumps about it and rewatch it in my head. As long as I can understand why I've made that mistake, then I can move on pretty quickly. But
Mm.
prior to that, I think it affected my next game. Like I'm talking whenever I was really young and starting out refereeing, but that was the real change in my career that I could get over that a lot quicker because it was going to happen, and I had to accept within myself this is going to happen every however many matches. You want to reduce it, obviously. You want to make sure it's every, not too often, but it was that ability in my own head to process it, accept it, and move on. And not really, as I said, not no one appointment has really told me that this is great. I'm going to achieve X, Y, and Z. It's simply that ability to know within my head and accept mistakes. Because again, previously I wouldn't be able to accept it in my head. I was trying to find reasons. Oh, this is why I give it, and this is why it was X, Y, or Z. But I think sometimes when the media are saying something about it, or players and coaches are saying something about it, and I'm still trying to justify why I'm right. And then, again, this was so long ago. Um, the penny needs to drop that maybe I am wrong here. And that's the big thing for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, like a little bit different. Like I do remember a game, but it's for the exact same reason that you were talking about. I refereed my first World Cup in Japan. It was 2019. I did the last pool game, which was Japan versus Scotland. And even though it was a pool game, it was actually the winner would make the quarterfinal. So it was a playoff game, and host nation, so atmosphere was incredible. And I'd worked so hard to get up to that point. And came off the game, and I felt like I did a really good job, and it was just a little bit of a weight off my shoulders. I felt that it was a bit of a release. It was like, you know what, you are good enough. Like all this time that you've been refereeing, you've been building up, you've been challenging yourself. And for me, it was almost like, cool. If the next day, if I wasn't able to referee again for the rest of my life, I would have been absolutely satisfied. And the beauty about that is that it actually allowed me to go to another level because I was so content and at peace with everything. I could just really go hard with all my other learning and sort of keep growing in that space. So I do remember that game. That's sort of one for me. And obviously had a lot of other different challenges and positive games after that. But it seems to be one that's sort of on my list, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no good. Um, Another question we have is, well, I guess that was covered up. So, someone said, with Ben being an eye doctor, could he fix your eyesight so you can make more accurate calls?
Well, the thing is, like, honestly, it's been a running joke for like my whole career is that, I picked
Incredible.
this as unfortunate, sort of, other specialty that I was, doing my medicine. I've actually sort of moved to a bit more musculoskeletal now. So, not doing as much eyes, but so that was fine. But then we started getting sponsored by Specsavers,
Oh,
which obviously is that.
it's done.
So it was just, yeah, it's been a tough few years, but no, that joke has come up a lot. So
Yeah.
look,
No,
we'll give anyone on this call a free eye test. Like if they can read the comments, they can see us, then they're doing all right.
that's incredible. Yeah, the Specsavers one is just. I mean, it's the best advertising I've ever came across. It's so fitting, isn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah, it is good.
It's the same
It is.
with
It
the
is. It is
Scottish the
really good.
Scottish football refs. They're sponsored by Specsavers as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a few patients that I'd see in clinics, and as their vision got better, they actually had a bit more to say about my games and things I was missing. So that was a good way to be able to test them their vision as well.
I love that. There's one here. So, uh, yeah, it's kind of been asked a couple of times in a few different ways, but and I guess we could probably end on that because I think we've covered most of the other ones. What's your advice to an aspiring pro referee, or your advice to a young referee that wants to make it to the top of the game?
Yeah. I think what the biggest advice that I always say is that, you can't do it by yourself. There's so many people around you that have advice, whether they are players, whether they're coaches, whether other referees. I know as I started growing up, I was watching a lot of referees and how they referee, and I'd take a little bit from them in terms of their positioning, how they communicated. I knew they were good at law or the way that they did their hand signals.
Yeah,
I know after club rugby games, I would make sure I hung back and, asked the coaches for some advice, if they were okay to do so. And, just talking to a lot of people just around ideas because there's so many other experts out there or people that have experienced things that you haven't experienced in a game. And so you may as well try and collect all that knowledge and then try and mold it into a way that works for you. I think it's really important not to be anyone else. Like no one else can be as good as Jamie Robinson, when he's Jamie Robinson. But if someone tried to copy you, then they actually, they're not going to be a good referee either. So it's really important to take the skills that you learn from other people and then just mold it into yourself, be authentic. And then if you can do that, it means that you're learning every week. And then eventually, if you put enough time into it, you will be on the pathway to be a really good referee, and that may lead to being a professional, on the football fields in the Northern Hemisphere, or doing Super Rugby down here as well. So I reckon, yeah, just being really open to asking questions and getting information from everyone.
yeah. I
What do
mean,
you say?
I was going to say exactly the same. Really, it was just using more experienced people from the very start and listening to what they have to say. And as you said, you don't have to take everything on board. You don't have to listen to everything what they say, but you don't have to take everything into your own game.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't. One thing I'll say is it doesn't stop because I've seen people over the years maybe get to a certain level and think that they're kind of beyond advice and listening to others because they think that they've got there on their own, but they need to remember that other people have helped them get there, whether it's like directly or indirectly, and it never stops. Even you and I, I still have my coach that I'm working with, and very much rely on him to try and make me a better referee as much as possible. So constantly talking to him, finding out, looking at my games, looking at clips, seeing what I can do better, and seeing what I can improve on. And it never stops, does it? Right until the end of your career. It just you're trying to always find that 1%, what can make you slightly better, because you get to a point where I guess you're doing what you're doing, you're refereeing in the style that you're refereeing, but you need to sometimes change things as much as you're maybe reluctant to doing so, because you think that you're sort of in that steady state of just taking off matches and getting through. But I think that's the key to actually finding new things that whenever you're so experienced to actually integrate to your game.
Mate, you absolutely nailed it. And like, I think this has been so incredible, like jumping on here, being live with you now. And, you can actually see that, okay, I haven't had a lot of experience, in football refereeing, but you can just see like how all the similarities there are between, refereeing and the different sports. Like it's amazing. So, I think it's incredible that we've been able to do this tonight. It's been awesome to have people, jump on as well. And I'm glad we've been able to get through some of the comments, but, yeah, mate, this is cool. And I think this is something we can potentially, keep doing.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do it again soon. We could literally chat for 2 or 3 hours, no doubt, and answer all the questions. But yeah, no, thanks a million. It's been fascinating, and hopefully it's been good for people watching as well. And yeah, let's run it again soon.
Yeah,
Definitely.
mate. Awesome. And hopefully we'll be able to put this video out. And look, I just encourage people that are on here now and anyone commenting, just get in touch with Jamie and I, and we can just keep answering everything that's going on, because I think it's important that people understand what it is to be a referee in both our sports.
Yeah, definitely. Top man, Ben. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Have a good one.
Cheers. See you. Bye.